fellow raiders. Together we have destroyed realms, torn down the feeble cities of the weak, and proven ourselves worthy. We shall drown them in their own blood and guts. Glory to the Master!
Ooh, alright. What's up, guys? Run it back with another replay. We've got a good one for you here. Norsca versus Chaos Dwarves. You might think this is a pretty bad matchup for Norsca, but I'm going to show you that maybe it's not nearly as terrible as you might imagine. Got some Marauder Horsemasters in my starting army, motoring up to the #1 objective there. Marauder Spearmen, 3 of them, just spread out all over the place. Some Marauders, just with the axes, and 1 Marauder Champion Great Weapon, going to be very useful for killing some of the Chaos Dwarf Warriors out on the #1. Our poor Horse Master does get charged by the Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders, which closed a little too quickly on these guys. It's a little slow in maneuvering them around. We'll see if I'm able to make up for that now, though. The Mist Stalkers coming in. Familiar with the dual weapons, very powerful unit. Honestly, a little underrated in my opinion. This unit just looks cool as hell. They're very, very defensively statted, so they're reasonably durable. It's very hard to shoot them off the field with 50% missile resist, thanks to from the Mist ability, as well as their innate 25%. 52 melee defense means that only like elite units and dedicated anti-large are actually going to be able to hit these guys, and they've got armor-sundering magic attacks. And a little bit of a boost to their melee attack, the bonus versus infantry bonus there of 15. Really low charge bonus, which isn't ideal, but nothing that can't be worked around. Really nice Searing Doom from my Metal Mage coming in. From here, Balefiend of Shadows, also using the Melkoths earlier on one of these Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders, which we've done a very good job of pushing back here already. A really nice dive from my opponent. Comes in with the Sorcerer Prophet Lord. And really hounds out my poor Shaman Sorcerer here, but a Hunter of Champions gets popped. We're beating the absolute crap out of the Sorcerer Prophet right now with Wolfric. We've got Seafang here. We've also got, of course, Hunter of Champions, which you've already seen. Doing some pretty good damage. My Horsemasters, they do escape from the Wolf Raiders. A little bit of an edge there for my opponent, but nothing too serious. We are getting engaged in the front line now, where we should have some success. You can see here, I'm trying to push the Miststalkers around the flank. I've got the Marauders taking most of the damage right now, and the Marauder Champions looking to get up through this gap that my opponent has left. There are a lot of games where if you're paying attention to what's happening with your infantry, you can find opportunities to just maneuver around with a handful of units to compromise the backline early on just by using your infantry well. That's not even bringing into play all the mobility that you can throw out, especially for a faction like Norsca, where you've got stuff like Skin Wolves and everything, and a Seafang going through the front line. Massive damage. I mean, it hits the Chaos Dwarf Warriors, as well as the Goblin Laborers a little bit. Really nice dodge at the Infernal Guard there. Popping a Searing Doom, trying to get Wolfric up into them to blob them up a bit while we slowly work on killing all these units. We get a very lucky tear out early by the Miststalkers. That's probably one of the biggest things that I haven't really brought up yet in their toolkit, is the fact that they actually tear out stuff. They're a very cheap unit to be able to do this, in fact. Lots of terror-causing units, you're talking about only getting access to that ability around like 1,500 plus cost, and these guys are 1,450, so they come in under the radar. They can like sneak up into backfield positions just like what's happening now, and they can absolutely lay waste to some very powerful and expensive units. So, Infernal Guard Fireglaves being shut down here, the Miststalkers all over these guys. Another Melkoths went down. Marauder Horsemasters just chasing down this Wolf Raider Bow. Another Infernal Guard Fireglaive. 2 more Infernal Guard Fireglaves, in fact. All of the Infernal Guard in the world being used right now. Marauder Ice Wolf Chariots I've brought in. They're going to throw a couple of axes here against the Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders, and then they'll peel out and they'll go find something to do. Trying to use them to charge down the Chaos Dwarf Warriors, but a good reaction from my opponent. The Sorcerer Prophet has been pretty busy this game, running back and forth, trying to find a position to really settle into, but hasn't really been too comfortable. I've been pretty aggressive with my Skinwolves in the early game here. It's forced the Sorcerer Prophet out of a lot of engagements and kept him up in the air for most of this. But getting a good charge off on the Chariots here is going to be pretty good value for him. A beautiful Searing Doom to help finish off this Infernal Guard unit. Marauder Spearmen, as I said, look for the opportunities, man. You'll find them aplenty. Being able to push into the back line, but getting rear charged by the Hobgoblins, and they're going to get absolutely canned here. Really good response from my opponent. But a really messy game overall. My Marauder Horsemasters, they're going to be retreating, but they're retreating in the path of my opponent's Hobgoblin Archers, who will not be rallying anytime soon. Hobgoblin Cutthroats, we get a good charge off on with the Skinwolves here. We got another really good Sea Fang there, I'm sure you saw. Such a powerful item, and we've gotten 1,300 value on Wolfric already. He's doing amazing, and another Searing Doom, just continuing to punish all these gun positions. Shaman Sorcerer with about 625 value, ain't bad, and the Skinwolves losing out here. Little unfortunate. I threw them up in here. I just kind of needed these guys to be occupied so they couldn't turn and shoot. And we are dragging them down slowly but surely. They're a lot healthier than the other ones, but 2 Infernal Guard have been killed pretty much completely. One here with 32 models is rallying in a moment, but it will take a little bit of time before they're fully capable of rallying and making some kind of pushback against me. Losing some of the Skinwolves here, who are fleeing for their lives now. Beltor's character coming in and terror-routing them. Another Searing Doom. Yeah, another Searing Doom coming down. Absolutely disgusting damage. This is why it's so powerful, man. Perfect for those isolated and blobbed up infantry positions, or for poking backline units that are tied up and having a rough go of it. Miststalkers continuing to chip away. They're very low. They've been getting shot to pieces. That's something that I didn't really point out super well about them. They're the highlight unit of this game, not necessarily because of their damage value per se, but they got a couple of really key terror routes. One on an Infernal Guard, as well as some Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders, I believe, and then we got some terror routes over here, and then the champions just iced the remainder of the Infernal Guard Fireglaive unit. And now they're just hanging in. They took a bunch of damage from the shooting as well. Those gunline units, man, are disgusting. The Infernal Guard Fireglaives have great damage potential. They just make life hell for vast majority of your forces as Norsca, so having a way to kill them has been absolutely huge for me, and Wolfric gets one last Sea Fang, breaking the Infernal Guard, as they've got the benefit of Cascading Fire Cloak. It's a very strong spell in terms of raising melee defense, but it doesn't save you from the magic damage, and Sea Fang with its damage profile is just very consistent. You get 3 uses of it, which is pretty wild, honestly, because a very similar item, Sleipnir, it's just a little bit stronger than this, only gets 2 uses, and it makes a big difference for Wolfric having the extra charge. On top of already being a pretty good duelist, I mean, he doesn't have quite the same stats as Valkia, but he's honestly not too dissimilar. He is a little more vulnerable to stuff like Spirit Leech and some of those other type of effects, but he's still reasonably durable with 100 armor. He's got 5,100 HP on his horse. Great leadership, good speed, good melee attack, melee defense, really good abilities, you know. I mean, Hunter of Champions is just nice to have. Lowering melee defense by 40, speed by 45%, and minus 30 armor on lords and heroes can be really brutal. It's very hard to withstand that kind of pressure. Marauder Champions up in the back line here, with some of the remaining Skinwolves and the Norscan Ice Wolves, who have traded reasonably well. The Skinwolves haven't been great this game, but they've been plenty of pressure when needed to win some decisive engagements, like this fight against the Bull Centaur Renders. A lot of this value is being spread out between all of these units, right? None of them is looking particularly incredible, and in fact, they did get a little bit of damage put in on them. But when all is said and done, they've done a much better job, my units, of killing my opponents before those get anywhere close to the kind of value that they need to be able to hang in. And I'm replacing my losses slowly but surely. One Marauder trotting around the map here. It was on the number 3 objective where it capped earlier in the game. And going to be moving it up into the middle here. Some very tattered units in my backfield, which I'm not going to worry about too much. Marauder Horsemasters, 2 of them coming out onto the field. My first Marauder Horsemaster really didn't do too hot. It was largely pretty useless. You know, it kind of got something done. It just wasn't all that spectacular. One last Melkoth's coming in from the Fimir. Just plopping it on the Hobgoblin Wolf Raider to help finish it off here so that it doesn't get any annoying charges off of my units. And an Iron Demon finally coming out from my opponent, but pretty late in the game. My infantry has basically all been killed. I've got one Marauder, which you don't need an Iron Demon to kill. Same with like the Spear unit, which is on its last legs. Mostly what I've got is mobility, which Infernal Guard Fireglaze would be really good against. But my opponent has not really been able to unsummon any of his. You know, we've got one over here that's rallied and died. This Infernal Guard Fireglaive is still on the field, but on its last legs. And I believe another one shattered and only just now ran off the map. So, taking advantage of opportunities to shatter enemy units and leave them to slowly trundle off the field is honestly kind of huge for matchups like this, because if your opponent's able to like resummon the really strong units in the late game after your initial dive, even if you've got a value lead, if you're beat up enough, you might not be able to re-engage them again. So I'm doing my very best right now to maintain what I have on the field as long as possible, while keeping my opponent's units from being able to walk off the field or just die completely so that my opponent can unsummon. Leaving this Infernal Guard Fireglaive on 95 HP with 7 models is basically better than actually killing it outright, so I'm really enjoying that situation. More Norscan Ice Wolves on the field, taking the head-up charge against the Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders, which they're losing a little bit right now. They were a little beat up already, but 1100 value on them is pretty great. Really nothing to complain about. Burning Head coming in from the Sorcerer Prophet, but not been not super accurate. The Burning Heads have been pretty lackluster for my opponent, using a lot of Cascading Fire Cloak and trying to move around with that. It's been doing a little bit for my op here. Not nearly as much as is needed right now, though. More Skinwolves coming up, some Marauder Spearmen. Skinwolves and the Marauders, with the very, like, tattered remains of the Miststalkers, are actually able to push my opponent back quite a bit. 1100 on this Skinwolf out of 1 summon is pretty incredible. Great value there. Shaman Sorcerer, who costs, I believe, like 500 gold with this spell kit. I think maybe 600. 600 gold caster, pretty much doubling the value. Couldn't ask for a whole lot more. Now it's kite game central with our opponent's very expensive Baltor's character. Flying around up top, looking for opportunities to engage my Marauder Horsemasters, but not really finding a lot of success right now. Skinwolves are just running around underneath with Wolfric nearby so that we can jump on this big guy whenever the situation demands. So just kind of mirroring him. You can see not doing anything too crazy right now. A couple of Infernal Guard rally here. But the Horsemasters, they get a little damage on them and immediately kill them. Shaman Sorcerer does get engaged on, but it was a little bit of bait on my part. I was out of magic. I didn't have any more spell casts. The Searing Doom out on the number 1 objective was the absolute last in my WOM reserves. So, just throwing him underneath the Baltor's character and my opponent taking the bait is exactly what I was looking for. So, Hunter of Champions comes down, Wolfric riding over with the slow-mo, looking cool as hell. Definitely going to be able to put a beat down on the Sorcerer Prophet right now, and lowering the armor with the Hunter of Champions is massive for my Horsemasters, who are just pin-cushioning this uber-expensive combat character in the sky. Skinwolves close the gap, and they get a great surround here. This big boy is all but done. Wolfric actually looks fairly healthy still. He's been amazing this game. I mean, amazing Sea Fangs throughout. I was able to get some really good value out of him. He's trying to finish off the Bellator's character, but the Iron Demon comes in and intercepts and is playing bumper cars with them. Sometimes high-mass units that are like, you know, single-entity chariots can like grab your units on the front and push them along. It's really funky looking. It irritates me to no end. It always makes problems for me. Kind of happened there for a minute. But Wulfric is able to get off of that, and he's going to just be escorting the Sorcerer Prophet away from the battlefield here. Skinwolves I do send into their doom, but it was better for them to die than Wulfric. I don't want to lose all that leadership when I've got a pretty thin advantage here. Like, the value looks a lot better than it actually is, I would say. I've got a pretty solid force of units out on the field, but a lot of that is contingent on trying to make sure that the Sorcerer Prophet doesn't come back, but unfortunately, Rally's right here on the edge of the map, which is actually kind of intimidating. I was a little afraid of a potential swing back in value here at the end, with my opponent getting a pretty good engagement with the Hobgoblin Wolf Raiders, but thankfully, Rudder Horsemasters actually fairly solid in melee combat. Not amazing by any means, you know, 28 and 27 with 28 weapon strength, 30 charge bonus, you know, looking pretty mid. You know, not too far off from the Hobgoblin Wolf Raider, but they already got tons of value with their throwing javelins. They don't need to do a whole lot more for me other than help keep my opponent's mobility at bay, which they're doing a pretty good job of. And Wulfric comes back over to get into the Iron Demon. Got some spears underneath here. Beast of Tashnar also looking to get some work done. Another Hunter of Champions going down. And one of my Horsemasters here does have a little bit of ammunition left. It actually has 5 volleys, so we're going to be using these guys. And we're going to get right back on the big old Sorcerer Prophet. And a beautiful Burning Head coming down this time. Finally a Burning Head worth talking about. Roasting my poor Spearman. Roasting the Beast of Tashnar, but also friendly firing his own stuff. This is why Fire Magic is a little risky sometimes. If you got lots of low armor units yourself, you can definitely, you know, get that Burning Head in a little bit too haphazard of a line where it just ends up punishing you more than it does your opponent. So the Marauder Horsemasters moving up, they were looking to chase this guy off, but a really good summon underneath of the Bellator's character to give him one last chance to rally. Does force me to take the engagement with the Horsemasters, but again, they're solid in combat as is, and they actually have about the same amount of HP as it stands now, having less than half health that the Wolf Raiders do currently, having only taken about a third of their HP and damage. So, this is a very deceptively durable skirmisher unit. They're basically a Centigore. I mean, Centigores for the Beastmen cost 800 gold, don't have a missile attack, don't have as much armor, have perfect vigor, and little bit better charge bonus. But all things being equal, Horsemasters, I think, are just a tremendously underrated unit. Just the extra leadership that they've got, the rage mechanic, a lot going for these guys that really gets them over the top in terms of being especially effective. For the Norskins in particular, just the fact that the Norskins have so many armor debuffing effects, like, you know, you can, obviously I've got Hunter of Champions, which does it, but I have Plague of Rust as well. I used that once. Wasn't super important in this game. I had other things that I wanted to focus on using it for. Or other spells I wanted to focus on using on other targets. And it just means that their javelins are that much stronger. And then being able to double up in melee combat and beat most other skirmish cavalry is awesome. So I love these guys. And they definitely shone through for me here at the end. They were carrying me in this latter half of the game. They killed the Bellator's pretty much by themselves. All 3 of those guys with the focus fire and the armor debuffs brutalized that poor guy. Wulfric chipped away a little bit, same with some of the Skinwolves, but these guys also ended up taking on a bunch of Hobgoblin Wolf Raider Cav at the end as well, which was great to see. And now they're just stuffing up the Fireglaves. So really well played by my opponent. The Fire Magic didn't really get it done for him. Bellator's characters are super expensive, and they've got to get a lot of value to pay for themselves. Oftentimes, you see these big Baltor's characters, they're the carry piece for your opponent if they're playing the Chaos Tally. One of the best things you can do against some of these big, scary monster characters, oftentimes, is to ignore them as much as possible. Like, don't give them clean engagements, and try to keep units that don't have ITP or, you know, like temporary ITP imbuements like Frenzy away from this guy so that he doesn't just tear out a huge portion of your army in the worst possible moment. And luckily I was kind of able to do that here. We got up into the backfield. These Marauder Champions were amazing. Some of this value is from the end there, but they got about, I think they got 1,300 their first go-around, which is pretty clutch. Definitely not something that I'm going to be upset seeing. This Marauder Horsemaster, it did come out twice, but it paid for itself both times. Technically, it got a ton of value the second time around. This is one of the main culprits in killing the Baltor's character. Probably got 1,200 value the second summon. Not so much the first, but even in the first life, it did soak up some damage and occupy the Infernal Guard Fireglaves while I could close in on them in melee combat. And two of these guys paid for themselves. One didn't, though, and their uptrade wasn't that tremendous. And considering the Bolt Centaur Renders just got taken apart at the seams and only got 400 value, you know, wasn't looking too good for my opponent, but he did the best he could, and he did pretty damn well. Norsca is very hard to contain. They can just be so uber aggressive and just totally bum rush you, and that's kind of what I did here, and my opponent held up pretty well, all things considered. I think a couple of different micro decisions and maybe going for a different Lore of Magic would have closed that gap and maybe been enough to get Zik here the victory that he was looking for. Anyways, though, guys, that's going to be it for me on this one. I hope you all enjoyed this. Nice post-game breakdown. I'll see y'all on the next one. GG's. Peace.